Welcome back. So we're on to Chapter 7. I think everyone should have had a chance to look at Chapter 7 by now. Chapter 7 is about lists and functions, and we're just reviewing it and expanding what we already know. We're just going to be going in more detail in the use of lists and functions. So if we take a look at the first example in section 7.1. Okay, what we're doing is we're taking a list of numbers, 1, 3, 5, and then we're printing it out by index number, and I believe the book is using 1. Now, index number 1 is the second item on the list. Again, to review, the first item will have index value 0, the second item will have index number 1, and so on. And the third item will have index number 2. So let's go ahead and try this out in the Python editor. So I'm just going to paste that in here. And we get an error message because, again, this is Python 3, so I have to change my syntax a little bit. I'm just going to enclose this in brackets so it's compatible with Python 3. So if we're printing out the item in the list with index number 1, that's the second number in that list, so it should print out number 3. So let's keep going through the examples. In section 7.2, we have the same list. And now we're changing that value. So right now it's 3, and we want to change the value. We want to multiply it by 5. So this is how it works. You take that item, you're referencing it by index. Okay, it's the second number in that list, so it has index value 1 again. You're going to take that number and multiply it by 5 and then reassign it back to the same list item, and of course you're going to be using the same index value. So if you're not convinced, just copy and paste that in and give it a whirl in Python just to convince yourself that this does in fact work. So again, I'm going to have to change my syntax here. And now we are going to print out the value, or rather just print out the entire list. So let's put n in brackets here. We don't need any index value here because it's the entire list we'll be printing out. So when we hit run, we should see the numbers 1, 15, and then 5 because we're multiplying that middle number by 5, and we multiplied 1, 15, 5. So you can see the only item in that list we've changed was the second item. Let's continue on to section 3. So in section 3, we're using the append method. We are adding a new number to the list. So let's print that out. We'll use syntax or Python 3 syntax here. So we're going to see the numbers 1, 3, and then we're adding or appending the number 4. We will see the number 4 at the end of the list. So 1, 3, 5, and then that extra number that we appended. Continuing on to section 7.4, we're looking at 3 different methods for removing something from a list. The pop method, the remove function, and then finally we're just going to delete that item straight out by referencing an index value. So let's copy all 3 examples into the code editor so we can try them out. So we'll start with the first one. So I'll delete the other examples here. Okay, and what we're doing is we will be using the pop method. Okay, and the pop method is actually a function. So what it will do in this case is it will go to our list. It's referencing our list n, and we want to go to index value 0. Well, if we go to index value 0, we see the number 1 in there, and we want to pop it, which means remove it. But the difference is pop is a function that returns something to you, so it will in fact return the number 1 to you, and you could store that in a variable. That's not actually done here, but let's go ahead and run it, and at the end we are printing out the list, and you can see the number 1 is not there. So that is the first method for deleting something from a list using the pop method. The second method that we're using is remove. So I'm going to delete everything else, and I'm going to focus just on remove. So what this is going to do is it's going to remove 1 from the list. It's going to go through the list. It's going to find the number 1, and it's going to eliminate it from the list. Now this 1 here is not an index value. That's something to be careful about. Sometimes these numbers we have in brackets are indices, and sometimes they're the thing you're looking for. So we could, if for example we wanted to delete the number 5 from the list, we wouldn't reference it with an index value of 2. We would just simply put 5 in here with the remove method. So let's go ahead and test this out now. And we are going to print out the list at the very end. So I have to have that in brackets. And we click run. And this time we see the number 1 has been removed from the list. Not convinced, keep experimenting. This time, instead of removing 1, remove the number 5 instead. And let's see what the result of that is. And we can see the numbers 1 and 3 in our console. 5 has been removed from the list. Continuing on to the final way of removing numbers from a list. Let's paste it all back in there. And this time I'm going to delete the other examples. And here we're just using the delete command, but we are referencing index value 0. So it's going to go to that list, and then it's going to find the element with index value 0, the first element, and it's going to delete it outright, and then we're going to print out our list. So we should only see the numbers 3 and 5 in the console, and that's all we have. So those are 3 different methods for removing elements from the list, and they're all slightly different. We use them in different circumstances, and we'll get used to that very soon. So in section 7.5, what we're doing here is we're defining a function, okay? And what we're going to do is just simply add 3 to that function. And when we call the function, we're passing in a number. The number is defined up here. We're going to use the number 5. It doesn't have to be there. You can, in fact, put the number down here as long as it's not within the function itself. So let me create a few blank lines there. So the number 5 is going to be passed to the function, or if you prefer, you could write the number 5 right in there and it will be passed as a parameter. So both will do the trick for us, but in this case, we're going via a variable called number. So let's go ahead and test out this code. Okay, so again, we're using Python 3, so I have to put an extra set of brackets here. So let's run the function. Okay, so what did we do? We had the number 5. which is held by that variable. It got passed up to the function, and then we returned 5 plus 3. It got returned, and then we printed it out to the console. In the next example, 7.6, we have two numbers, and I don't think I need to actually run this in the console in the editor. If you have any questions about it, please send me an email. We're taking the numbers 5 and 13. We're assigning them to variables m and n. And then we're going to print out the result of the add function. Now this function here doesn't take one parameter, it actually takes two parameters. It's going to take the numbers 5 and 13. So what does the function do? Well, let's take a look at it. 5 and 13 are passed in, and the number, the sum of the two is returned. So 5 plus 13 is 18, so we should have the number 18 printed to the screen. And when we continue to 7.7, what we're doing here is now we're doing a similar thing, but we're not doing it with numbers. We're using strings. So the string n, or the variable n, is set to the string hello, and I'm going to move this here. It doesn't need to be up there. I'm going to put it down here as long as it's not within the function definition. Okay, and we want to print out the result of that string function when applied to n. So the word hello, that's the value of n. That's what's being passed up to our function. So imagine this word hello going from here to this placeholder or variable. It's being passed up to your function here. And what is happening? So we have the letter S, small s, to represent the word hello. Hello comes in here and we see a plus sign. So if you recall from an earlier chapter, plus, when we're using it with strings, means to concatenate or to glue strings together, glue words together. So we have the word hello passed in here and the word world. And I think I should actually run this to demonstrate it. So we'll just simply see hello world in our console. So let's paste that in and put in the additional brackets required by Python 3. And we'll run it. Oops, is that the right bracket? Yes. And we will see hello world in there with no space. If we want to rectify that situation, I believe the assignment said not to do this, but if you want to rectify it, just put a space after the quote but before the W, and this time when you run it, hello will have a space after it, or more accurately, the word world will have a space before it. And I think we can go on to 7.8 now. These videos were allowed to be they're allowed to be up to 15 minutes maximum. So I think this is going to be the last example in this video. So here we're defining another function. Okay, the function takes one parameter, x, and it doesn't seem to do anything. It just simply returns it, returns that parameter. So nothing special is happening here. We're just printing out on the screen whatever was fed into it. So we're feeding in a list to the function. That list gets passed up here, and the exact same list gets passed back to us, and we print it. So it's not really an especially useful function. I think it's just simply demonstrating how to move a list through a function.